Nice. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Ah, so welcome to Integrate Yourself, everyone. I'm your host, Allison Pillow, and you can find me at pureenergypdx.com. Today, I'm here with a very special guest, and you just heard him play this magical flute that we have a story about and we'll share later in the show. But basically, his name is Dr. Cliff Oliver. I've known Dr. Cliff for quite some time now. When I started out at the CHEK Institute, he was one of the teachers, and I learned a lot about functional medicine from him and low tech testing and all kinds of amazing stuff. And as well as I was really inspired to pursue music, and I bought a flute from him, and we're going to tell that story later and how it made its way back to him again. But he has been in holistic integrative health care for 40 years or more, actually more than 40 years, with degrees in BSN and DC, and he's co-founder of the CHEK HLC programs. And I had the honor and the pleasure of going through 1 through 3 of the HLC program and learned so much from that. There was so much information. It took me years to integrate it, but lots of amazing information. He is a chiropractor. He's a holistic chiropractor, and his business is Center for Balance. And I will share all his social media links. And he's also an iPhone photographer. He has some amazing photos, and he gifted me a book of his photos that were incredible. But if you ever get a chance to follow him on Instagram, I highly recommend. He takes these amazing pictures of surfers, and he also used to make surfboards. He's patented a surfboard as well. So we're going to get into some of those stories today. Welcome, Cliff. Thanks so much for coming on. This is so wonderful to have you here today.
Gosh, thank you so much for the nice introduction and inviting me to be on your podcast. It's a real pleasure and an honor. And it's
You're
great
so
to
welcome.
face again. That was just,
Yeah, we had so much fun. We connected again years later, just recently, this last year, actually late last year. And Yeah, that was an amazing, it was we had a great conversation. It was so fun to catch up and connect. And asked you if you want to come on my show. You're like, sure, I'll come on. So I was like, yay, because that's because I think more people, you just have some great stories. You've been around the block, you've been in the holistic health community for so long now. You've seen the changes, you've seen how it started out, and some of the beginnings of it. And it's really interesting to hear how far it's come, and then how far we've also slid back. But um, you know, even just in the time I've been in holistic health, it's changed quite a bit. So, yeah, crazy
yeah,
what's
there's some
happening.
powerful forces out there that want a certain status quo, and whew, there's a lot of resistance, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah, there is. Yes, it's a little concerning how many people just kind of that were in the holistic health community just folded
Mhm.
and left their values at the door. And because in my opinion, holistic health is about believing in and entrusting in the healing potential of the human body, right? And that can be that can be kind of unlimited, because there's so many ways to do that. But when we talk about doing it in the way that people have suggested most in the most recent years, it seems very limited. And a lot of people in the holistic health community, it seems like, have gone in that direction too. So that to me was a little confusing, why they would do that after so many years of teaching people that the body heals itself, and here are things that you can do to help it with that, through spiritual, emotional, mental aspects as well, not just physical, right?
Right, right. It's pretty amazing. I mean, the first holistic health conferences ever held in the Western world were in San Diego. I was fortunate enough to go to them. They're in the mid 70s. I was at San Diego State doing a Bachelor of Science in Nursing. at the time. And there's people out there like John Thie. He started Touch for Health, which became really popular, mainly with nurses, massage people, body workers. It was about balancing the body. What a concept.
Right.
And the first conference they had was like hundreds of people, like, I don't know, 300, 400 people. And they were mainly doctors, nurses, and traditional medical people who were fed up with the system. They were fed up with having to break things down into units and give them a drug or something to, try and get them out of symptom response. So they were like really dedicated people, and they were just had this whole concept. And the original debate on holistic was should it be WHOL or HOL? And it's
Oh,
pretty
right.
interesting. We had the Whole Earth catalog back then, right?
Yes, yes.
So the Whole Earth catalog was about the whole Earth, but the holistic debate was HOL is like holistic, like holy, right? Holy, meaning
Yes,
mind, body,
right.
spirit. And that won. That was the model. And it went for 3 years, this conference. It was so good. It was so, uplifting, and so many interesting people. I met a psychiatrist from Baltimore who was doing, like intuitive diagnosis on these cases nobody could figure out. And places were starting to open up. And then the wall came crashing down. The forces to be to keep it without changing really took away the impotence, and the people just sort of filtered off into smaller groups, and it's just sadly went its way. I mean, some groups survived, like the American Holistic Nurses Association, American Holistic Physicians Group, and then some splinter groups started up. And then Andrew Weil came along, and he started integrating medicine. So he was
Mm,
going to have medicine and then integrate it with some of the things from the other side. And then some of the things were like herbal compounds and real
right.
dietary and some breathing, but he was anti-chiropractic and anti a few other things. It's like, it wasn't very inclusive.
Yeah.
It wasn't
It's
real
only the
whole.
holistic things that I think are holistic.
Right. So that was a crazy, crazy times. And then people started getting more into it as they realized the medicine that we were getting, the healthcare system wasn't quite working. And then
Right.
it really blew up the last 2.5, 3 years. People, I think, are really starting to wake up that not one group suggested, gosh, maybe having a good lifestyle, maybe being out in the sun at the beach was something to promote health. Not, I belong to two medical groups, for my healthcare managed care thing, UCSD Medical Center and Scripps, and they haven't sent out one thing about let's check your vitamin D levels. Let's do, anything, nothing. It's like get your vaccine or don't come in. It's just overwhelmingly horrible step back. It's like we came so far up the hill, climbing, and then we went off the cliff. We didn't even roll back. We just went, boom.
I know. Why do you think that is the case? I can't figure it out myself. I don't know if it's that some of the holistic practitioners really wanted to secretly be medical doctors, or if it's something else that's going on. I can't,
Yeah.
it just, or maybe people are just afraid. But it just seems weird to me if you have that knowledge that you would just immediately let all of that go. And it's just crazy. Yeah, I don't
I
know.
think a big part of it is that they're attacking medical practitioners.
Mm,
So the powers to be, the medical boards, the hospital boards, they're literally coming after people. So like when this first started, the very beginning, nobody even really knew there was a pandemic to start. My personal medical doctor and good friend for 30 years tells my girlfriend, I goes, you guys got to get this stuff. You got to get this hydroxychloroquine. I'm going to write you a prescription. Well, I know about hydroxychloroquine because it's used a lot in, some autoimmune diseases. So I go, well, really, why would I want to do? We've got all this other stuff. Why would I do that? You've got ozone. We can do this and that. And he goes, no, you got to get this now. So he writes a prescription. Run over to like Rite Aid, I think it was, and we pick up these prescriptions. And lo and behold, within a month, you couldn't get it.
oh, right,
Right?
right. They took it
They
off the market.
cancel it out. And then literally people coming after and attacking him, like trying to shut him down. And then when these different, restrictions and people trying to get their um, some sort of medical excuse or religious exemptions, things like that, they're now coming after medical practitioners in California that they get no exemptions.
Yeah.
So you have to get their treatment, or you can't even be in practice. We're going to take your license away.
Yeah.
So it's been tough, and you just, of course, most people are following the Peter McCullough stories, and Robert Malone, and those
Mhm.
people are being attacked. Well, that's going all the way filtering down to nurses. I'm a nurse, I'm a registered nurse, and I have lots of friends around the country, New York City, Omaha, and they're getting let go out of their positions, worked at 20 years there,
Mm.
15 years, if they won't take this medicine. And they're like,
Wow.
be honest, I have one really good friend who's just finally got certified in healing touch, so energy work,
Mhm.
at a
Mhm.
children's hospital in the Midwest. You'd think, wow, what a perfect thing. These kids all massive, scared to death, and somebody come in and right lay hands on them, and she got fired out of the position
Oh
because
my
she's
God.
not jabbed, and she had a religious exemption.
Mm.
It's like beyond crazy. So
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah. So
power.
people are afraid of getting their license taken away too. It sounds like that's happening a lot as well,
Yeah.
or getting fired. Yeah.
Mm.
And I know of some nurses too that have had to leave their position where I live, and they're like, wow, I can't believe this. I've been doing this for 20 or 30 years, and it's just nuts. Um, it's there's some bigger stuff going on, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's so you got, oh my God, you got so I love listening to all of your stories um about like holistic health and just all the people you've known along the way. And when I, sometimes when I think I've been in it for a while, I'm like, wow, man, Cliff, he's seen a lot.
Uh-oh. I don't know if that's a good thing or
I
not.
don't mean that as like, I mean that totally as a compliment. I mean, there's something to be said for experience and having stories in your life, right? I mean, that's what we're here for. So, but you gotta tell everybody kind of, I think it's important, especially now that we like share with people where we've come and where we've been, because there has to be some context here for what's happening now.
And the
Um,
whole cancel culture thing where they're canceling out everything historical. Well,
yes, yeah.
medicine's getting canceled just as much as anybody else is. You
What's
know,
being canceled, you said?
medicine, the history of medicine,
Well, I mean, any natural remedies too, like are not being talked about any or not allowed to be talked about, right?
right, not allowed. No, it's out of context. Oh, erased. And I mean, literally erased. You can't even track it down. You can't find it in search engines. It's amazing.
That's why I just kept all my books that had all that kind of stuff in it. And if you go, I'll also recommend that people listening, like, go to thrift stores, find these old books and keep them because you might not be able to get this information much longer, you know?
Before they got sucked in or seduced by, oh, it's everything's online.
Hmm.
Ebooks, I can find the answer to it. And then now you look up stuff and you look up, I don't know, detoxification. And all of a sudden you're put in touch with some medical institution for something or other. And you go, wait a minute, that I was thinking about maybe coffee enemas and I thought, something a little bit more like,
Sauna, maybe.
that's, that's too radical for the
Yeah.
search engine. It's like,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's so funny how we need so much assistance to detoxify our body when it has all these systems within it that do it
Right.
on its own. It's just, we just have to give it, the support. And that I think is the rub here, is like with all the things that people tell us that we need for our bodies. And when our bodies ultimately heal themselves, our immunity does work, whatever we're using, it's working, whether it's, the medicine they're suggesting or not. And you're also, your body is constantly regenerating, constantly detoxifying. It's doing all this work all the time, right? This is what we're
Detox.
here to do. And to be so disconnected, which we are as a society, I think, as far as the trust in our body to do its job, to help us, to support us, has really been lost along the way, especially now. And there's so much fear around that. And so energetically, that is that's also creating a lot of health issues, right?
Completely. I mean, seriously, what's happening with kids? I live next door to an elementary school, and just driving by there is horrifying. They're masked and they're outside. They can't even sit close to each other. And now they're finally letting them move a little closer, but they're running around with their masks on. And then you go to
Oh,
the farmer's
man.
market, and the little kids demand to put them on. They feel scared. When you look at different, ways of measuring that, and the suicide rate is just skyrocketing, and how these kids ever going to overcome that. I just heard a stat, I think it was Robert Malone was talking about it, about the IQ level has dropped something like 22 points in these
Oh,
kids,
wow.
the average kid in the last 2 years. The IQ level, 22 points. How do you ever
That's a
get that?
lot.
That's a lot. And how do you
Yeah.
ever get kids to feel safe again if they won't even, nobody else at the beach has a mask on. They're out there with their mask on. These little kids, they're 4, 5, 6 years old. It's like
Yeah.
he wounded a lot of people. That's going to be very hard to overcome.
Well, there's a lot of implications there because it's not, and a lot of people, some people think it's not a big deal, but I actually see it as where it is a big deal because if you're thinking about like you're changing the pattern of someone's breathing, right? And we both know what the implications of that are because when you become more of a mouth breather and a chest breather, that's going to put you in a state of fight or flight constantly. So you're raising,
Automatic.
yeah, you're raising the next generation to be in this fight or flight mode, right? They don't know how to downregulate their nervous system. They don't have the tools, right? And so there's that aspect of it. And the other aspect of it, of course, kids are learning social behaviors. They're learning a lot through watching people's facial expressions. And when they're not getting that, that's gonna create some social issues as well and some a learning curve as it relates to that. So and the isolation factor too, because some people are still being isolated as well. And then not to mention, I heard about this not too long ago. This is horrible. There was a news article, and I can't remember where it was, but they were advocating people bully or kids. It's okay for kids to bully other kids to get the medication,
Yeah,
right?
no, you're right. No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I
Yeah.
was like, what is going on? This is nuts.
I mean, JP Sears is, an ex-Czech person who's got his
Yes.
podcasts out there, and he had a great one the other day about out there in New York City with a megaphone, turn in your neighbors. What is so true. I just saw in the news, I mean, just this morning about the tennis tournament in Melbourne, my favorite large city in the world. I just loved going to Melbourne to teach. And now they have the most strict lockdown, crazy. And here's Djokovic coming in to play in this tennis tournament. He had all the passports done, all the medical exemptions to go there. While he's flying in, they say, no, we have the strictest things. The government's, we can't let a medical exemption for a tennis player. And so now
Oh,
he's in the flight and he lands, and they're like, "You can't get off the plane. You can't be
oh
here."
my God.
Oh,
That's
it's
crazy.
it's nuts.
It's just, yeah, there's no logic to it
No.
at all whatsoever. And there's no common sense. It's just, especially if you know anything about health, you know, uh, it's just great. I'm like, I'm not a doctor, but I feel like doctors should know more than what when they're
It's unbelievable. I mean,
just,
how
I
can you
mean,
how can you have the parking lots to the beaches closed with police cars? Like we have a small
yeah,
parking lot in Windy Sea Beach with this picture behind me from that area. They go there almost every day. They have a small parking lot holds maybe 20 cars.
yeah.
During the main part of this, they have 3 police cars
Oh my
to
gosh.
block anybody parking there to go to the beach where you can walk on the beach. Here comes these guys all look like they're ready for the SWAT team. Get off the beach, it's dangerous. Like what?
Yeah, you've been
In the
to, okay.
sun
So
and clean air.
so I want to give people a little bit of background. You have traveled, you've taught all over the world, and I think Australia was a big place for you to go pretty often, right? What are
Australia.
what's going on there? It is crazy. I mean, what happened? I thought they were so open about things, and especially as it related to health. I felt like they were very progressive in the alternative health realm. And they just kind of just got hijacked or something,
I
you
think
know?
they were getting hijacked a long time ago and people didn't know it. So I'll give you an example. I think it was 2005, right around there, 2005, something there. And I'm going over there to teach, and one of the stuff was on adrenal glands, like, what stress does your adrenals and what hormones are affected, like DHA and pregnenolone. And the guy who runs the program for us over there comes up to me and says, well, you can't mention DHA. I said, what do you mean I can't mention DHA? It's against law. And he shows me this piece of paper that says you can't talk about these different hormones and things. And there's like a $10,000 fine. And he thought he'd be fined if I talked about it to these coaches and trainers.
I
I'm
wonder
like,
why.
I'm going, what is that about? Who's passing these crazy rules that you can't talk about? So that's over 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Then the next thing I know is that there's this commission out of Germany many years ago, and they keep trying to pass stricter laws for nutrients. And so while I'm over there, another time, a little later, I don't know, maybe 3, 4 years later, they're having this passing of this commission effect on the natural foods industry. And they got in there by saying that the company that made a lot of products for other people, like Metagenics, that's a popular one they made, they said
Hmm.
something was wrong with the batches of fish oils or something.
Oh,
So they
okay.
went in and they shut down the whole industry. And then they reinstigated
Wow.
these laws that are like draconian about what they can sell, the amounts they can sell. I mean, it was like overnight, nobody even knew it happened.
That's
So that was
crazy.
that was at least 12 years ago in Australia.
I didn't even know about that. Yeah. Oh my
So
gosh.
they've had some underground things I don't think people knew about. The fields didn't seem to affect them, but wow, yeah, stuff was going on. And now,
Wow. And
oh,
now, oh my gosh, they took it up about 10 notches.
at least.
It's so yeah, oh my goodness. So yeah, things around the world are a little nutty as well. And I know that in San Diego, they're really pushing back some from what I last saw.
Yeah, they're
Um,
trying. It's tough though. The city council and the school board are not on board. They want the mainstream CDC, and they're not bending. So hundreds of went down and protested, gave testimony, and they just kind of blew us off.
mm,
They're not listening. They don't care.
wow.
Really amazing. These people are so arrogant.
Yeah, I wonder how much they're getting paid to do that.
And by whom? And the whole, oh man, that just gives us a
Woo,
subject. But
like
we
to see
shouldn't get
that.
too carried away on this because we have such a great topic to talk about.
I know, I know. I know we probably need to switch topics here. We had that's
We don't want
enough
to,
about
we don't
that.
want to bum people out.
I know, right? Well, let's see, where should we begin? I mean, we're talking about we had talked when we met back late last year
Okay.
about yeah, I'd mentioned something about like I'm done with striving because I'm ready.
Yes, what a great topic.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I posted something on Instagram too. Like I've been hustling all my life and like I'm done with that, you know. And it really relates to the thriving versus surviving mode. So I think we're coming into an age too where people are given the opportunity to slow down and really see the beauty in life, which is the other side of the coin, actually, right? So I mean, there's like a lot of crazy stuff happening. You could call it bad, I suppose, but in a way, it is pushing people into looking at their lives differently, right? Having a different perspective, really honing into what matters most in their life. And I think that's a gift in itself. And so for me personally, I was just I was trying so hard and even like when I was at the CHEK Institute, when I first met you, I was really, wanting to know all this information so that I could become this amazing practitioner. And, you know, and it's just, it really is not as much about that as it is about your experience of life, right? And it's
Right.
more what I've learned is, it just gets so tiring for you to push yourself into depletion all the time because you don't feel like you're enough, right? Or because you need more, or you got to have more information before you can do that thing, right? I mean,
Right.
there's something to be said for practice and experience, and I feel like that's one thing I did learn from you was like you were just doing things, and I saw you like going traveling everywhere, teaching all these places, and you're playing your instruments. And I was like, wow, like he's doing the holistic health thing, but he's also a musician and he's, really doing what he loves to do. And it was so beautiful to see that balance of life you had set for yourself there, as well as your photography is amazing. And very it just inspires me. I just love looking. I'm like, I could look at this all day long. And so yeah, so it's I think we're coming to a place where we're really having to get to the bottom of our values, or reassess them, I suppose, because life has changed. We have new there's a new purpose. You can do what now's the time to do what you enjoy doing and experience what you want, right?
Right. And when we say striving, oftentimes when we say striving, people become very narrow focused, right?
Yes,
And so
yes.
my message to this group, I mean, mainly CHEK people were trainers and coaches, and they were very narrow about this focus. And so much so that I said,
Yeah.
oh, you gotta get a flute, bring some music into your life, dance, do something.
Yeah.
It was like so narrow. And then you see what was happening to them. You see the overuse injuries and the
Yeah.
breakdowns and being a practitioner in professional sports with the Padres for a while and seeing these people, what happened to them when all of a sudden their career was over. Like, oh, we don't need you. We got somebody to take your place. And the devastation of being so narrowly focused, so striving for so long that they had no ability to integrate with the people in their lives, with other things in their lives. So people often would end up in some sort of rehab, doing something that's not very good for them,
Right.
eating, drinking, drugs, whatever. And it was pretty dramatic to see this, and it's hasn't gotten better, you know.
Yeah, I think it's all the pressure that you put on yourself, right? And I
Right.
remember feeling that way too. Like when you say narrow, yeah, it's so narrow and it's intense, because you're putting all this pressure on yourself to strive and to be something that I look back on, I'm like, I'm really not sure what I was trying to do, because
I mean, we've got our dreams, we've got our little things that we want to do, like make surfboards or be
yeah,
surfer or gymnast, or we have
right.
these things. So when they become exclusionary, I just saw this great documentary the other day. It was on these five top organists in the world who are in this contest in Canada. And so they have
Wow.
top organists in the world in this contest, and it's for under 35. So the top organists under age 35 going to Canada, and they followed like five of them. And I'm going, and you just see this man from a young age. They're like, da, 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 da. They're getting narrower and narrower so they can play these pieces. And then they're interviewing. The guy goes, well, I look calm on the outside, but I'm a wreck on the inside. And then the guy who ends up winning it was doing it in church. He was an organist in the church as a young kid, and he had jazz, and he just wanted to play jazz, but he knew he
Wow.
couldn't do it for this contest. But he had this little broader look at it, right? And it came through the music. And
Yes.
they're from China, they're from Europe. It was crazy to watch this and then just reflect back on our subject,
Hmm.
striving to the point of being so narrow. There's a great book by Les Fahimi, and he wrote the book called The Open Focus Brain. And I got this book and I flipped through it and going, oh, this is so amazing because it's about how we pay attention. And the
Yeah.
more narrower
That's
we
a good
pay
one.
attention, the more stress there is in our lives. And so I'm
Yes.
looking at like these organ players, and they're like so narrowed down. It's like consumed. They have a coach, and they're this and that, and I'm like, wow, what's happening to the rest of their life? What happens when they don't win this contest? And you can see them just devastated when they didn't win, right? It was like,
Yeah.
how horrifying. But anyhow, Les Feeney had this concept that if we narrowly, objectively pay attention, it's the most stressful thing we can do, especially if we shift from one to another. Concept shifting is super stressful, where when we're striving, we're often striving to the exclusion of other things. So the opposite of that for him is when we're immersed diffusely. Like we're
Hmm.
out fly fishing, and we're like, where did time go?
Right.
Down in nature. I'm, I'm like totally immersed in the moment. I'm totally diffusely, it's like regenerating. So
Yeah, yeah,
really teaching people with this striving to be something more and better and bigger and faster and smarter. And wait, you got to learn to read before you're age 3. And then you look at Steiner schools and Waldorf, and they say, wow, if you read that early in life, your left brain's going to be dominant, but your right brain won't
yeah.
function. Oh,
Right.
what's that brain? Oh, that's the one for balance and music and colors and stuff like that. And we've done this, and now these kids with these masks and stuff on, they're like so focused, so narrowly focused, they can't even see out. So it's
Yeah,
amazing, but that concept of striving to get someplace at the
yeah,
expense of being. So I use the thing striving or being, and it's really a
yeah,
continuum, and it's really being able to step in and process both sides of that, right?
yeah. That's yeah, balancing that out, right? I- And you're in, and no matter how hard you strive to go somewhere, you're always going to end up back home to yourself, right? It's always going to end up right there.
Usually, unless you step outside somehow. And it's usually not on purpose.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. Um, yeah, it's fascinating that yeah, we do teach kids to get in the left brain pretty early on in school, right? When they
I
should be
think
imagine using their imagination and like,
even in utero, right? We play music to it.
yeah,
The kid, we play in the alphabet. So here's this poor kid being blasted with the sound of A, B, C, D.
yeah, it's a little early.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Oh
by
my gosh.
doing that, we also lose the ability to change course, right? To, I say integrate on different levels.
Right.
Integrate on a spiritual, a mental, emotional level. We lose a lot of that ability when we become very narrowly focused. I had a dream many years ago before I started the CHEK programs. And the dream was I was walking down the street and I look up the top of this hill at the end. It's kind of a mountainous region. And there's like a mansion. And I'm going, wow, this is cool. And I go up to the mansion and I open the door and I notice inside there's all these rooms, and they're like doors are open and stuff. And I wake up and I go, wow, that's the model for life. It's the 100-room mansion of possibility.
Oh, I love that.
And what do we do when we're born?
Ah,
We have like the doors are wide open,
yes.
usually, unless
Hmm.
there's some sort of force shutting them. Your parents are going, oh, look at little Johnny, so cute. His voice is so good. He's going to be a singer. And the kids, yeah, screaming, right? But everybody's like enhancing this
Hmm.
ability to visit all the rooms in this mansion. And then
Yeah.
I go, yeah, and then okay, then what happens? You go to age 3 or something, and all of a sudden you're being compared. Well, he's not reading yet.
Oh
Well,
God. Yeah.
Johnny's whatever's
The
coming.
pressure.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, whoa, better get Johnny reading.
Yeah. You're like, wait, what am I? What? Like I would
Yeah,
always be like, what?
yeah,
What
we
am
got
I
to get
doing
him
something?
striving to be better at his reading. And pretty soon, in this little 100-room mansion, the doors are starting to close, right? Well, he may
Yeah.
have been a dancer, he may have been running around, he may have done this and that, but now all of a sudden, these little doors of possibility are slowly getting shut. And the time he's like 5 or 6, he goes to school, and oh, he seems to be better at being the class clown. We can't take him serious. Oh, there goes some more doors.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom,
Oh, there
boom.
goes the comedian door.
Yeah. And so in this
Hmm.
dream, in this carry through, I was going, gosh, and by the time somebody hits like a young teenager, wow, it's really the rooms are closing. By the time they're a young adult, it's like they're living in one bedroom,
Oh
right?
yeah. That's
They're
so
like,
true.
they're
Yeah.
beating
And then you
themselves
have your
up.
own kids and then
Yeah, you're beating yourself
it
up because
happens
I'm not
again.
good enough, or I'm not this, I'm not a good enough athlete, I'm not a good practitioner, I need more information. And
Hmm.
you're in the room just. And then by the time we get, I don't know, a little bit older down the line, we're not even in the one bedroom, we're in a studio apartment. In the
That is,
mansion of possibility. And it's like, I think it was
man.
John Bradshaw. He said, God, we're born and they give us a bag. And in the bag, they start filling it up. And by the time we're a young adult, this bag's so full of can't do, this shouldn't do. rules, regulations, focusing on this and that. We can't even get through the elevator door, right? That was so overwhelming. We're so weeded down.
Ah,
Now the devices. I used to take pictures of people from my classes on people on iPhones or different devices, and their
uh-huh.
heads like this. We were at some function the other night, and these kids were so bent over. It was like
Yeah.
Christmas Day potluck. These kids were like, they were paying no attention to the potluck. It was at the beach. It was a beautiful day. Surf was good. And they're like on this device, and their head from the side was so, this whole thing with Technic and all this stuff going on
Look
was,
like a kyphosis kind of
yeah,
thing going on.
dramatic. Poor head position.
Oh,
You could see the damage being done in real time.
yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah,
again,
and
the
that's gonna
focus
be
is, yeah.
yeah, that's not a good way to start it off there. Yeah, not at all.
um,
Yeah, I just I love your analogy of the mansion. That's great. And I think of also the bag as having like those are all our conditions that we have in that bag over our shoulder, right? So many conditions. And we've put more into the bag this past couple of years as well, which has been so weird. Um,
Way more, right?
yeah, so many more.
Yeah. I know, and we're making it. We're like owning those. Like we're condemning other people for not
Yeah.
having,
Like I'm not going to love you unless you do this.
right?
And you're not going to be in my life until you do this. And you got to do this and that and all the other things. And that's ridiculous, you know?
Cutting out a lot of possibility, a lot.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. And so I think it's going to take some people who are more courageous to step outside that box of conditional thinking and start to open up more doors for themselves, and
Right?
just start saying, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I'm gonna do
Yeah,
me.
yeah. I mean, I love like brain gym. So you probably heard of
Oh
brain.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
So I'm sure some of the people are listening haven't, but it was like coordinating activities using both sides of the body, doing different things like this and that. And
Oh yeah.
so you
Yeah.
so you get this like integrated brain. What have thought? Steiner figured it out a long time ago. A lot of other people did, right? With bringing music in and
Hmm.
movement and
Yeah.
not reading until you were 7. I mean, just some crazy stuff that would
Yeah.
let you be more integrated. And that's again brought music into these classes for these trainers. Gosh, why don't you try music? Why don't you try laughter yoga? Wait, 1 minute.
Yeah. Yeah. When I train people, I have those three components. I have a system of integrating the brain with the movement. We have a certain playlist, a certain rhythm that we work out to. It's specific, and I make them laugh. We have all those components.
Listen, I want to change my state, but it's going to take years of striving. I'm sure it will.
I know, right? Yeah, and can we also look at things like this is what I've been thinking about lately is how about like learning how about looking at it with like a childlike curiosity where you're curious about what's going to happen and you're excited about it and excited about learning something new instead of putting all this pressure on yourself to know it all before you even really experience it, you know?
I think one of the things that for myself that's really, really gives me a lift is like learning. So I like to have my clients and people in the classes do a statement of purpose, right? So what's your purpose? Why are you here? What makes you wake up in the morning and get out of bed? What is that? Well, you teach that and you've got to figure out your own, right? You got to you got to dive in.
Yeah, right.
But then the confusion early on, mine is to learn and to share. So if
Yeah,
I'm learning something and sharing something, then I feel like I'm of service,
I'm
right?
similar too. I feel the same way.
Exactly,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. So where does it get hung up that I'm just learning, right? In this one room. Who hasn't done this? I mean, I probably still am, an addicted learner, right?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah.
It's so narrowly that you forget to share, right? And so sharing is about connecting. It's about
Yes.
making people feel safe, connected, um, having a discourse, having some sort of integrated relationship. And so that's again, it's balance, right? You can't just
Yes.
be a great learner. You've got to do something with it. You can't just
Right.
lock it up and learn all these techniques for the 5%
That's
of
not
people.
good for your body either to do
Oh,
it
it's
like that.
not. No, it's terrible. But we do it. But it took me a few years to get over that hump. And one of them was at a dear friend from the original Holistic Health Conferences, Paul Brenner, brilliant
Uh-huh.
medical doctor, brilliant PhD. And many years ago, I called him up and asked if we could have some tea together. And I had some challenges I wanted to talk over with him. So we go down to his favorite coffee shop and we're sitting there and he's going, oh, and he wrote this wonderful book about triangles of where we receive love and how we give love. And so he's
Wow.
outlining my life on this napkin at this coffee shop. He's got these triangles of love for your parents and who you relate to, and it's going on and this and that. I'm going, oh my gosh, we get done. And I felt like I had the roadmap. What I solved all my issues. I now had the roadmap. So we're cleaning up, and his coffee cup spills, and he takes this napkin and wipes up the coffee cup. The coffee spilling the table. And I'm going, wait, in my life.
Gone.
Wait, what are you doing? He says, oh, come on. And he takes it and he throws it in the trash. And he goes, you know everything you need to know. There's
Yeah.
nothing that needs to be added. There's not another book, another seminar, another anything in your life. It's just being now.
Yeah.
So we walked out of the restaurant thinking, how can I get back there without him seeing me?
You need to dig through the trash.
Yeah, I know. And I'm thinking, oh, I hope hope they don't get rid of him before I get back. But by the time I got back to his place, I was kind of over it. But still, it stuck with me, right?
Right. That's incredible. And it's so true. I mean, everything that we do that we need has always been there. It's
Oh,
just
there.
opening yourself up to it really, and it's that journey because
So when
like
we did
there's no
the
leap. We're already there, right? I mean, it's kind of,
so when we
yeah.
did the CHEK Holistic Lifestyle, the original one, we
Hmm.
had like 6 foundational factors, and they were all based on what we already do. We sleep, we
Yeah.
live, we eat, we, have thoughts, and we breathe.
Yeah.
Holy smokes! I guess we can all check the boxes. I think, gosh, we're in the class. Everybody gets a C. We're passing. So if we're about striving for something, how about integrating it all and take little bits and see where we could possibly make improvements with ourselves, our friends, our family. And then another one was NLP, right? Neuro linguistic
Hmm.
programming.
Right.
Their big thing is like matching and mirroring, right? That concept of
Hmm.
being in our conversation now, and you can get your head on my mind. We'll we follow each other
Cross your
whole
leg if
life.
they're crossing their leg.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah.
So here we are doing all this stuff, and we have this ability to match and mirror those around, so we can help people without directly saying, "Oh yeah, yeah, breathing's bad." No, we could just breathe well ourselves.
Yeah.
What a thought.
Right. Just hold space for someone, like just
Exactly.
listen. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Mm.
There's so many ways to do this, Cliff, right?
I know. I know.
I wanted to share. I didn't want to leave without sharing the story of the flute. Uh, and I'll start off by just saying that, like I mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show about when I started going to the CHEK Institute and doing the holistic nutrition and lifestyle coaching courses, HLC. Um, I started working with you, and then, like you said, you kind of probably you were getting the vibe that people were too narrow focused and needed something more creative to open up their right brain, and that was me. And because it was like a whole new world for me. I was a young mom, and I'd been with stay-at-home mom for 3 years, I believe, or 2 years, and I was just getting back into stuff for myself. And after you go through kind of a weird time when you have a baby, and especially as an athlete, your body changes, and then I went through this stage of just kind of repurpose, like what's my purpose, and like all
Right.
these things. Like I
Absolutely.
just felt like, what am I doing? What because it's kids are it's really wonderful to have kids. These are some of the best years of my life to be at home with them. Because it's just like you really don't have to do anything. You can just be there with them, that's really it. And at
Yeah.
the time I didn't realize how
No, I
valuable
know.
that was. Like, oh, that's a gift. But I had, you're younger and you got things to do. You're like, you want to
Right.
do things. So
Driving.
that's where I was at. I was a striver. And now I'd be like, heck yeah, I'll just do that right now. But but as I saw the flute, I was like, oh, I really want to do that. That called me because I've always wanted to. I became an athlete, but I always wanted to get into music more. My parents were singers. They knew how to play instruments, and they were all into that. And I kind of had to make a choice between that and gymnastics at a young age because gymnastics is a full-time sport.
Very
So
narrow focusing. Yeah. Just
exactly, very narrow focused. And although it can be creative, it's also very you have to follow instructions and do what your coach asks you to do, and you're being judged, so you're really you're just doing it for everybody else, in a way,
right.
to be honest. And at first it's for you because it's fun, and if
Yeah.
it doesn't get too competitive, it's still kind of that way. But I think the competitiveness of it gets in the way with because gymnastics is really fun, but I think it gets too serious, honestly, and too much pressure. I mean, you could from this last Olympics with Simone Biles, you could tell
Oh,
that was, I
oh,
mean, it gets to be dangerous if, so, anyway, I always had this, love of music. And when I was a kid, I would sing and I would dance and I'd play instruments and do all these things. And then all of a sudden I dropped it for gymnastics, and I thought, man, I would really love to do that again, but I don't see myself as a musician. And so I kind of, didn't really use it that often. I had it there as a symbol of like, hey, you can do this. And it's beautiful. And I played it from time to time, but I didn't really like get into it until just recently. I was like, um, going through like an identity, kind of getting rid of old identities, like ways that I used to see myself and all of that. And so I thought, yeah, I bought this flute years ago when I was starting out at the CHEK Institute. I was a completely different person, and I was going through things in my career. I was building my career. Oh, and I'm definitely a different person now and want to pursue other things. And so I don't know how okay, Paul, I think sent us an email and he was like, yeah, Cliff, get Cliff on your show. Like definitely. And then I think you asked about the flute or somehow it came up and I sent you a picture of it and you were like, hey, would you be willing to let that go? And I'm like,
unbelievable.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like I totally, well, not totally, but almost given up. So this
Yeah.
flute,
Tell your end of it because
so
that's a
this flute,
better story. Hmm.
so this is kind of a really cool story. We can make it the long version. We'll make the kind of short version, but I was in practice, private practice, had a big practice, saw a lot of people, and I had some people I knew in the massage field, in the holistic health, IPSB, Institute of Psychostructural Balancing, and um, Rick Gold, he started an acupuncture school and he started this massage school. And so I worked with these people and knew a lot of them, knew the instructors. And one of the people who was involved in there had called up and wanted to do a trade. And by then in my career, I kind of knew that trades didn't work out so well. Somebody sort of felt cheated on one end or other. Was kind of, so I was like, well, no, I don't think so. I trades that. And I kind of knew the guy made massage tables and I already owned several for my clinic. And so I went, well, yeah. And he goes, oh, I've got something new. And I knew he was getting into making drums. I was thinking, no, what? I don't need a drum either. So he goes, I'm coming over. So him and his girlfriend come over to my office and they bring a flute. I'm going, well, that's nice, but I don't play, and I'm not a real musician. I play hack at the guitar, but that's not my thing. And they're going, well, if I just leave this with you for 2 weeks, and if you just go up and down, just go, see what you think. So at the time, every day I was doing a 15-minute meditation and a 15-minute power nap. I said, okay, my meditation will be going up and down on these notes. So I'm going, oh, this is cool. After 2 weeks, I'm going, kind of fun. And lo and behold, it kind of sounds like music. And for
Wow.
somebody who's not particularly musical, I'm going, wow, I think I'm making music. Now, I'm kind of one of those people that if I learn something or play with it, I want to share it. So at the time, I was very involved in going to poetry readings in a place in Rancho Santa Fe, a bookstore once a month. They had poetry readings. And so I went there with this flute that trade was on. I accepted it. And I take this flute. I'm only playing for a couple of months. I go there and I go, would anybody like a flute behind their poetry reading? Well, who wouldn't want that, right?
Right.
So they're going, yes. So there I am playing, going up and down, dee, 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 dee. And wow, it sounded really good on poetry. And a lady comes up and goes, well, I'm going on a book signing tour. Would you play for it? Oh, God,
Wow.
twist my arm. And then, so I do that. And a couple of months later, I get this phone call again at my office. And this lady's on the line. She's going, I was at this bookstore and I was looking for CDs of Native American flute music. Great. And I needed it because I'm making a movie. It's going to be a documentary about saving these wetlands from Del Mar up to Volton Mountain. And I wanted Native American music in it. And I'm looking through these Carlos Nakai and all these famous people. And she goes, the lady at the bookstore says, why don't you go get the real thing? Why don't you have a real flute player? So she calls me up.
Oh my God.
And I go, wow, great. Yeah, I can do that. Again, I'm not a musician. I never took music to, I just make it up. I go up and down on the flute. So she goes, well, send me your CDs and your performance tapes. I'm like, busted. I don't have any. And
Right.
so she goes, well, I'm going out of town, New Mexico. I'm doing scouting for this thing, project we're on. 2 weeks come by and I'll talk to you then. Great. So I go and I call up a friend of mine, there's a little home studio. I said, hey, can I come play my flute and you can record it? He does. He says, great. So I go over there and I make up these songs that make up, da 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 da. And 2 weeks later, he says, okay, I got him. I'll just bring him over. Brings in the CD and he says, oh, I added some piano and some other
Wow.
instruments. So I listen and I go, holy smokes, it sounds like real professional. Lady calls up and I said, oh, I put some stuff together for you. Check it out. Comes by, puts it in a car, drives up to Del Mar. By the time she gets there, she hires me to do a movie soundtrack.
Oh my God.
Now I don't write music. I just make up music. So my thing with the Native American flute and why I liked it so much was you can spontaneously make up music,
Yeah.
right? No judgment. I'm not trying to play Happy Birthday or anything. I'm just making things up. So I call it improvisational, spontaneous improvisation.
I love that.
Great. I'll just spontaneously go up and down the flute. So I do this. End up spending the summer making this little soundtrack for this documentary. They had the final showing, huge turnout. They love it so much they paid me double. I would have paid them. So there's
That's
something to be
that.
said about being on purpose of expanding, right? We're talking about striving, but there's something about bringing a lot of joy into that striving, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned earlier on in our program about this program I saw with these organists. And these people are so focused, they're just so very narrowly focused to win this competition, which only one out of however many people in this contest win it. What reminds me of a story, just a quick little side on this flute,
Yeah.
of I'm trying to think of Robert Johnson. So Robert Johnson, some of you have heard of him, is a great, I'm going to call him a philosopher. He's a Jungian psychotherapist. And he befriended me many, many years ago at a whole being weekend. We just hit it off and got to spend time with him. And he tells me this story of different things in his life about going to Europe to be an organist. And I'm seeing this movie of these European organists, and he wanted to be an organist professionally in his life. That was his goal. Well, when I was up at Paul's time before last, he says, oh, I've got this great book. I'm sure you've never heard of this guy, but it's Robert Johnson's autobiography. I go, no, no friend. And is that not crazy stuff?
It
But he
is.
went there to be an organist, and he ends up somebody saying the first class by Carl Jung is going to be happening. Do you want to go? And he goes, and he has this dream And in the dream, he's walking up this hillside and he ends up spending years interpreting this dream, which changed his life because he was open to the possibility and he wasn't so narrowly going to be an organist. So he ends up in Carl Jung's lap.
Oh my God.
I
So
mean,
it's so interesting. It's like that when you can, I think it's about like that story is so incredible because both of them, because they're just a great example of like the synchronicity that can happen in your life when you're
right.
open to more than one possibility, right?
Mhm. So on this flute, there I am. I'm playing this flute. It was so great. I start thinking, oh, I should take this on the. When I started teaching, this is way before I started teaching. Now I started teaching. I said, oh, I should take a flute with me. Well, in the meantime, this guy who made this flute, Stephen DeRuby, his girlfriend comes over and says, we got this other one that's got a little defect in it, and so it had like this. What they put in there? They put in this ground up stones like turquoise in it.
Hmm.
But it had this little defect on it and said, so because you're helping sell our flutes to like you,
Right.
we want to give this to you. So I'm like, great. So I go and I play it, and it doesn't sound very good to me. So I like this other cedar flute, and I'm like, well, it's nice, And 6 months later, she comes over and says, well, how'd you like the flute? I said, it's great, but it's kind of dead, right? It's kind of flat, and this other one's so bright and cheery. And she says, well, let me see. And she picks up the flute and she goes, I go, uh-oh, it's not the flute. It sounded like an angel playing. So the flute was like this angel. I went, holy smokes, it's not the flute, it's who's playing it and how they're playing it. So it
Yeah.
really changed completely what I did with it. So I carried this flute everywhere. Everywhere. I took it,
Wow.
it's been around the world multiple times, went all over the place with me. It was just this amazing flute. I figured it was so solid I could use it. I needed to feed it off.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah, it was so amazing. So then 5 years ago, I'm playing at a friend's going away. She's moving back to Ireland with her two young children. And so she wanted somebody, a bunch of people to get together for a picnic. She wanted me to bring my flute. So I bring it, but I leave it. I lost it at this picnic.
Oh
Never.
man.
So I spent the last 5 years trying to find this. And the person who made it had passed away in the meantime. I think it was leukemia. Tried contacting his ex-girlfriend, all these different people. Nobody had a clue. There's a couple of people in San Diego had some of his cedar flutes, but nobody had a walnut flute. And then all of a sudden you send me this picture and it's the exact same key, same everything, same top on it. And I don't know if you can see that, the
Oh
colors.
yeah, yeah. Well, it changed. It's so funny. The stone looks different because of the background you have there.
Right.
I think it changes the color of it. That's weird. But it's turquoise.
Turquoise.
Yeah. It's
So, and it all
yeah.
happened because I think I did a podcast with Paul or something, and he had written
Yes.
me, and I think he copied you in it or some for some reason, but you responded, and then you said, yeah, this, and I can't tell you how flabbergasted I was that you had, and not only that, you were coming down to Southern California, so it's
Yes.
like this
Yes.
double amazing window.
That
Can
was
so talk about response of the world or synchronicities or whatever you want to call it. It's amazing.
absolutely. That was, and it
So
was such a fun day too.
I know.
Yeah.
Beautiful day.
Yeah. And you introduced me to a lot more things as it relates to music too, since I've met you or since we connected that day. Um, because I picked up the ukulele now, so I've been
Right,
playing
right,
with
right.
that.
A fun instrument, right?
Yeah, so much
Well,
fun.
and I'm sure, have you checked out like ukulele meetups or groups in your area?
No,
A
it
lot of,
meetups are kind of weird here right now because they're very,
yeah.
they're very masky and scared of stuff.
No,
But
no.
um, so people don't really want to get together. But I think yeah, I think I'm gonna learn the picking. I've already been working on the picking on my own, but I would like to learn some stuff about that more so because I love how it sounds.
Mm,
But yeah, I've just been playing around with that and uh it's really four strings, so you know, not a big deal.
so easy.
I know, right?
And so there's different people online, Ukulele Zen, I can't remember what the guy's name is, but he's got just little beginning programs, the real advanced ones, and but his
Yeah.
spirit is so into the holistic model. right? He's very zen. And he
Yeah.
plays. The guy's like superb, of course. He's like, wow, how did this ever happen? And he plays backup for who's that singer? Um, I can't remember what her name is, but she sings like an angel. She's in some group, with their white robes and stuff. But he plays guitar for her and stuff. So the guy's like a superb musician, but he makes it so he brings you into it because he's sharing, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
he's
That's how,
doing it.
yeah, you're sharing your gift. And when you're enjoying it, people can tell, and then they want to watch or listen, or they're really, they're focused on you because, that's what people are drawn to. Ultimately, it's
Mhm.
not about the person who's pushing it. Uh, yeah. So yeah, that's I just love you remind me of all the synchronicity that can happen in life, and if you're just open to it. And I really appreciated you back in the day waking me up to that, because that really inspired me, and I've not forgotten ever since. And so just so much love and appreciation to you for what you do and what you have shared and brought to the table of holistic health is just incredible. So thank you.
Well, thank you for putting it out there, right?
Yeah.
Podcasts with working with clients and embracing it and being away from striving into the whole sharing mode, right? You've taken this
Yeah.
information and you're opening people's eyes and letting them dive into being in the moment and being in the process and enjoying it moment to moment. It's like the whole
Yeah.
mindfulness movement is what you're bringing forth to them. And so
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to
Yeah.
pass the baton and in return get feedback.
I know. I will maybe I'll do the flute one day. I'll get back to the flute again one day. This sounds
One
seems
day,
like yeah, it's funny. I'll say one more thing about the flute before we close up, but I stopped doing the flute because I lost the book.
oh, I've got more of them.
I was like, oh, I guess I don't know how to play now. So I'll just, but now I could have improvised though. And that's what I'm going to do moving forward. I'm going to do more
Right. Well, that's one of the
improvisation.
reasons I really like a didgeridoo.
A
Right? The
didgeridoo.
didgeridoo. Like
Oh yeah, I
going,
remember seeing the pictures of you
oh,
playing that. Oh
right,
man, that's
right.
incredible.
And so
Yeah.
it's like there's no real tone. There's no real per se thing that you're going to play. So it's kind of like really freestyle.
Yeah, yeah, that's
But it's
pretty
about
awesome.
breathing. You kind of got to breathe to do it.
Well, it's a good breath exercise. It's so funny. I think we might have talked about this, but like the whole thing about like breathing, the Wim Hof, like it's all good and all, but like I kind of almost crave an expression of the breath, like there needs to be an expression there, right?
Yes,
And so
yes.
that's why I like music and I like singing and vocal stuff. And, like what you're talking about, that instrument you were talking about as well. Like there's a way to express your breath, which I think gives life to it, in a way. So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. So, oh my gosh.
Well,
Thank you
thank you
so
so much
much.
for having me,
You're so
and ready to
welcome.
share a few little stories. And
Oh yeah, I hope you come back at some point and share more, because there was more stories that we could have talked about, but that was really all we, could get to today. And I think that's probably people will be so happy to hear these stories. It's going to inspire people. So thank you. And
I love just 2022.
yes,
Creative, COTT. It's great. It's already great, and I'm so happy to be on this with you at the start of
absolutely.
2022.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. I'm really grateful. I think this year is going to be much better than the years. I mean, every year for me has been pretty damn good, I have to say. I mean, I can't complain. There has been challenges, but I feel like, it's only going to get better. We're just, needing, I mean, you have to, I mean, the rubber needs to hit the road on occasion for you to use what you've learned, right? I mean, it's like, it's time to flex your spiritual muscle here, like we got to do this. So this is all good for us. Is there anything that you want to share with my audience, Cliff, before you go, about what you're currently doing? And we didn't really talk much about the iPhone photography. but you're really amazing at that, and you do hold classes for that.
So yeah, I've taught for the last, oh gosh, 7, 8 years now, iPhone photography, mainly for a group called the Athenaeum. It's a music arts library that's 120 years old in La Jolla, California. And it's kind of faded away at the moment because of in-person versus online learning. We did a couple online. It was nice because it got people out of the area.
Mhm.
It's just hard photography. I mean, you
Yeah.
really want people to practice, in a group. So hopefully, as it starts to open up, although it's closing down here again in California, it'll get back to that. So I do one-on-ones. I do online classes for that. Some people just want to, have an
Oh,
hour.
cool. Yeah.
And then 2 days a week, I do integrative healthcare. So I have a robust practice online. Monday and Wednesday afternoons, and I spend the mornings going over labs and different tests and things like that. So I have clients from India to Singapore,
Wow.
Scandinavia, all across the United States. I've got some really interesting clients. I have a new pediatrician who wants to get his life together and have a new family and
Oh, wow.
wants to send me a lot of patients, and I only want a few good patients. There's a statement out there about patients, but good patients, people who want to kind of put in the work and open to bringing in music or whatever,
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
just being focused. So do that 2 days a week, and the rest of the time, really involved with photography. Surfers is the main thing to concentrate on, surf photography. I used to make thousands of surfboards. I have a surfboard patent. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so
I meant to get into that story, but we didn't get a
that's
chance
a
to
whole
talk
nother.
much about that, but we'll do that next time.
Yeah, yeah. So you know what? I had a friend gift me this camera because I
Oh,
heard
really?
some advice, and she had gifted me this huge Sony, really expensive camera. Just sent it to me in the mail, and it was like, I'm being pulled back into this.
Wait, this happened recently, you said? She
Yeah,
gifted
it
you the
happened
camera?
about a year and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's like I was
Yeah.
completely just iPhone. I didn't want things simple. I didn't want Photoshop and computers and all this stuff. And she sent this, and then you pay attention and you're open to things falling out of the sky, flutes or cameras or
Well, you
whatever.
were just saying last time I saw you how that what was it called? The automatic like they did like what 20 pictures in one click or something, and it was too many
Right.
to go through, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so maybe this would be better because it's just you get to only take, a few pictures and
30 frames a second is a lot
30
more
frames.
than
That's
that.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's
I was out
crazy.
this morning, got some great pictures. I slowed it down to 10. But
Yeah, that's a lot.
it's nice to be out there. There's a great community, people who surf tend to be a little bit more in touch with the ebb and flow of the tides and the weather, and they don't seem to be so, well, they're pretty focused, but they tend to be more in the environment, right? They want to be out
Yeah.
in nature. So it's a
Yeah,
good,
I think that's going to be the key moving forward is we're going to have to get our connection back there. So,
so
oh my
that's
God.
true.
Yeah.
So 2 days a week,
What's that?
this,
2 days a week? Yeah, you're helping people with a holistic health aspect.
right, right.
Yeah.
So
Are
it's
you
good.
seeing people like for chiropractic still? Are you doing any of
I
that?
see occasionally maybe one a week, something
Uh-huh.
like that. So keep my hand in it. But I do a lot of stuff online with, like for instance, people with chronic back or neck problems. There's so much you can do just online talking through stuff. So like
Yeah.
polyvagal work, I can do all that mainly online, and so
Oh,
you can
that's
make some
great.
really good changes in people's life. I had a client in New York recently who runs a museum, and he had some challenges and talked him through polyvagal eye movement, head motion, and whoa, that's so amazing. So there's a lot you can do without
Yeah,
being.
there's a lot of things people don't consider, and that's great to make them aware of that for sure. I love it. I love helping people with those kinds of things too. Yeah.
And then the other thing
Simple.
is connecting with people like you. Old
Yes.
students. I have students in Melbourne and Australia and Byron Bay, and just staying in touch with all these people who have, I've made an impact with them. But my old friend Paul Brenner, he wrote a book, Buddha in the Waiting Room, about how his patients were his teachers. And I
Yes.
feel the same with like you,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
coming back into my life, and you are my teacher now. So it's
Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. Great to talk to you and connect with you again, Cliff.
All right. Thanks for reaching out. Thanks for handing it.
You're so welcome. Hey, can you leave us with a little flute?
Oh, sure. We'll do one a little bit more upbeat.
Okay. Woo. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.